It wasn't even the white one.
Well, he might have thought you said cheese.
If we haven't killed enough time, can we try to get a topic here for once?
Never.
Okay.
No.
We brought Tony. We brought some jerk with a camera in to do a discussion because I've been bashing my brain since I started playing DuckTales Remastered, and I started thinking, and I started rewatching a lot of the old DuckTales episodes, and I went, Scrooge McDuck never really gets brought up after DuckTales. You ever notice that? So what happened to him?
Well, it's a combination of various factors. First of all, the voice actor Alan Young has gotten older, and he was pretty old when he did DuckTales in and of itself. But I mean, he played Wilbur back on Mr. Ed back in the 60s.
Yeah, I was going to say a favorite show.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's the logical. Let's face it. As iconic as he was for the voice of Scrooge, let's face it, voice actors can be replaced. I'm talking in the Disney world. Let's take ourselves out of reality and actually let's try. Why don't we try to sit there and do a rational discussion on what could have happened to Scrooge in the Disney world, in the world of the Ducks?
Wait a second before it gets started. I have somebody else who wants to be in if we have enough room for AntiMat.
I'm the more Disney fans, the better. Because let's face it.
Let's push that jerk's camera to the side there.
No. Right. Let's get AntiMat in.
I'll tell you what. Since this is y'all's thing, I'm gonna go ahead and bow out.
Okay.
I just wanted to give everybody an update on how I'm feeling and everything.
Yes, and Tony. Thank you very much for telling us about your fucking blood shit and your hemorrhoids.
Yes.
Yeah, you could have at least told
It's Disney magic.
Fuck you, dude.
Family friendly.
So speaking of blood shit and hemorrhoids, Scrooge McDuck. Now, richest duck in the world.
AntiMat.
Bye, guys.
Hello, AntiMat.
Welcome to the conversation.
Farewell, other Tony. So, we got rid of that noise fuzz too.
What do you have that?
No, that was literally the sound of him shitting blood. Just a river of...
AntiMat's just looking like, what the fuck did I walk into again?
Computer.
Hi, AntiMat. We're having the blood shit and Scrooge
discussion.
discussion.
His computer.
Ah, cool.
Absolutely.
Right.
So it's funny you should mention Scrooge's history within the Duck universe because, as I'm sure many of you know, now I've never played DuckTales Remastered or any of the DuckTales video games, to be fair.
Oh.
But the DuckTales, well, I'm not that big a gamer, to be honest. But the DuckTales TV show has its origins in the comic books of one Mr. Karl Barks. Not Karl Marx, the famous communist, Karl Barks with a B. Karl Barks was, to give you a bit of history, he was a story artist for Disney Donald Duck shorts in the late 30s, early 40s. I think they moved into a different building, and he was allergic to the air conditioning in that building, so he had to get a job elsewhere. And the Disney comic book department was like, well, you're a story artist. Comic books are basically just, storyboards on the printed page. Why not become a comic book artist? And he worked on Disney comic. I think the first Disney comic he ever drew was in 1942. He finally retired from comics in 1967, so a good 25 years of basically being the Duck comic book artist. Now, the great thing about a comic book is, since you're reading Donald Duck's dialogue instead of hearing it, you can have Donald say anything, and you don't have to worry about him being legible. So he was always far more verbose in the comics than he ever could be on the screen. So a lot of side characters were introduced, probably the most popular being Scrooge McDuck. Karl Barks is the creator of the character Scrooge McDuck. He created him originally as a one-shot for the comic story Christmas on Bear Mountain in 1947, which is why he gave him the name Scrooge as a Dickensian reference. And And eventually the character became so popular, and you could do so much with him because he has all this money that he could fund these worldwide global expeditions to get more treasure, and and he could. There were just a million things you could do with the character, so he did a million things with the character. In 1952, Scrooge got his very own comic book, and it lasted for. I believe it still lasts to this day, if I'm not mistaken. Carl Barks drew every single issue until 1967, as far as I could be. I think towards the end they got other artists, but Carl Barks, more than anyone else, really established Duckburg as we know it in the DuckTales TV show. In fact, some episodes of DuckTales, even though they differ drastically from the comic stories on which they're based, Carl Barks is still listed as the only writer, because they were based on some of his original stories. He invented the idea that Scrooge was a gold prospector in the Yukon. He invented pretty much all the great Scrooge DuckTales villains. He invented the Beagle Boys, Magica De Spell, and Flintheart Glumgold. And in the 1980s, two different things happened. Number one, the Carl Barks comic books gained such an appreciation from collectors. At the same time, Disney was looking. Michael Eisner had just arrived at Disney, and he was looking to just make the company more money by any means possible. Now, Michael Eisner came from Saturday Morning. He was like vice president of Saturday morning programming at ABC in the 70s, and so he knew how much money there was to be made there. And Disney had always resisted it because the idea of producing a weekly animated TV series, the quality would have to dip so low that it wouldn't be to Disney standards. Michael Eisner basically said, fuck that, we're doing it anyway because there's money to be made in it. We can spend a little more money than our competitors are spending to bring it a little more up to the Disney level quality, but there is no argument. We are doing it because there's too much money to be made in the field not to do it. But everyone thought, well, we can't use our main characters yet. We can't give Mickey his own show or Donald his own show, because what if these shows are failures? Then the value of those characters might decrease. And so the danger of that. So instead, they created kind of the compromise. The first big compromise in that area was DuckTales. The idea being you'd still have the nephews, you'd still have talking ducks, you'd still have this Duckburg environment. But instead of it being Donald and the boys, it would be Scrooge and the boys. And they invented this whole thing where Donald had joined the Navy, and so he wasn't in most episodes. So they based a lot of this. They took a lot of liberties with the Scrooge characters compared to what Carl Barks. Like, for example, in DuckTales, they gave Scrooge a mansion in addition to his money bin. The Carl Barks Scrooge never would have bought a mansion in addition to in the Carl Barks world. Scrooge lived in his money bin. That was just his house as well, because he was so frugal. He would never have bought a set. He never would have had a butler. Duckworth was invented strictly for the TV show. Webby was invented strictly for the TV show because they wanted to bring in a girl character. And but the basic ideas were still there. It was still, Scrooge sending his family on all these expeditions to, various corners of the globe. Scrooge talking about his history and everything. Now, the second thing that happened in the mid-'80s was a new company named Gladstone took over Disney Comics. They got the rights to publish Scrooge comics and Donald Duck comics, and they were run by huge Carl Barks aficionados, so they wanted to hire new artists that could bring that same kind of style to the comics. And one of the biggest new hires was an artist named Don Rosa. Now, Don Rosa was a hardcore Carl Barks enthusiast, and in his mind, all of his stories took place in the same universe as Carl Barks' stories, and he was very intricate in making sure he never contradicted the Carl Barks universe. For example, in Don Rosa's mind, all of the Scrooge stories he drew took place in 1952, which in his mind was kind of the heyday of Carl Barks. It was the year the first Scrooge McDuck comic was published. It was kind of what he considered the heyday of it. So So all of Don Rosa's it was a busy year for Scrooge, 1952. But yeah, every single Don Rosa comic takes place in that year, except his most ambitious project, which was The Life and Times of Scrooge McDuck. It was a 12-part comic book series in which he scoured Barks's entire entire bibliography, basically the entire library of Carl Barks comics, and found every single time Scrooge mentioned anything about his past. Anything, I was a shoeshine boy in Glasgow in the 1870s. Well, it would go into The Life and Times of Scrooge McDuck. I found the goose egg nugget in the Yukon in 1897. That wound up in his backstory with Glittering Goldie, all that stuff, in this elaborate 12-part series. And if you're interested in it, I highly recommend. They released it as a graphic novel about 10 years ago, and they also released an additional compendium that detailed every other kind of in-between story Don Rosa's written and drawn about Scrooge's past. So anyway, now here's where I'm getting to with all this. In Don Rosa's universe, Scrooge was born in 1867 and died in 1967. Now, this has never officially been published, in 1967 particularly because that's the year Carl Barks retired. Don Rosa, like I said, huge Carl Barks aficionado. Now, this has never officially been published, to my knowledge. Yeah, I could be wrong about that. I stopped following Scrooge comics earlier than I should have, perhaps. But if you go on, in fact, I can print the URL to this here. Don Rosa drew a single panel of Scrooge's funeral.
I actually had that already set. I actually already had that image. So.
Yep, and I just put the link to it in the Skype chat. And yeah, according to the tombstone, Scrooge McDuck, 1867 to 1967. So in in the picture, Donald's an old man, and the nephews are all grown adults, or at least strapping teenagers. So I guess there's your answer. In the Don Rosa Carl Barks. Now, obviously, this differs from DuckTales because the DuckTales universe definitely seemed to be set in modern day, or at least in the 1980s, and but it's just different interpretations on the same character. Not every version of it. In fact, around the time I distinctly remember around the time the Life and Times of Scrooge McDuck comic series started to be published, a different artist named William Van Horn, who was hired around the same time as Don Rosa, but had a much more cartoony sensibility. And his drawings were a little looser. He had much more of a sort of Looney Tunes anarchic style to him. And around the time it was established that, Scrooge McDuck made his first dime as a 10-year-old shoeshine boy in 1877, William Van Horn drew a comic where Scrooge is walking down the street going, I'm the richest duck in the world, and for 133 years now, I've had to work for everything I've asked. It was a very funny gag relating to, different artists have played with different versions of this, and Don Rosa himself says, look, not every artist has to be as slavish to Barks's vision as I am. I just, respect and admire Barks to such a degree that I can't not be slavishly devoted to him. So I kind of forget where I was going with this, but yeah, basically in the Don Rosa, and I'm not sure how Carl Barks feels about this. Carl Barks might just have the opinion of, look, he's a cartoon. He can, and I doubt that Carl Barks had, the grand vision that Don Rosa gave to his stories. But yeah, I'm pretty sure Carl Barks was kind of just playing it by ear. But in the Don Rosa version of the Carl Barks universe, Scrooge died in 1967. So in the DuckTales universe, I'm guessing Scrooge died as well, although of course we'd never see that. So
well, I'm looking at Jerk. I am looking at the picture, and like you said, that Huey, Dewey, and Louie are obviously in their late teens during this picture. Mm-hmm. So I'm thinking like Disney World, Disney Universe. So Scrooge must have passed away somewhere around the same time frame as what? Quack Pack?
Yeah, I guess because Scrooge McDuck never was in Quack Pack, was he?
No, he was referenced loosely, but he was never brought up specifically, and Quack Pack was technically the official spin-off of DuckTales.
Yeah, although I never watched Quack Pack all that much because it aired at around the time I was kind of getting out of being. It was during those couple of years where I decided I hated Disney for some reason.
Yeah, I'm not an expert on the show either. That's the thing.
There's one thing. Sorry. Yeah, there's one. However, there's one thing I want to mention is that the last time that Scrooge McDuck actually does make an appearance, I actually remember this. I don't know if it's one episode or several, but Scrooge does make a few appearances in the House of Mouse. Like he appeared in as a guest star.
He does appear in House of Mouse, yes.
Yeah,
well, the House of Mouse is kind of a different animal.
Yeah, I know the episode you're talking about. There is an episode of House of Mouse where Scrooge basically bought the house from the bank, cut the budget of the show, and then when he realized it was losing money, ended up selling back to Mickey for a profit.
But the whole point of House of Mouse is that it's all the Disney characters at a nightclub. You got like Maleficent talking to Captain Hook. The rule book is gone out the window with that show. I mean, it's kind of the commissary on the Disney studio. It takes place in the Roger Rabbit universe where, it's acknowledged that none of this is really real. It's just a bunch of actors in movies. So.
I feel more like it might be in a more bigger universe than Roger Rabbit, because not only do you have the cartoon characters, there's even several appearances from Disney rides. All the Haunted Mansion ghosts were there, and I saw in some places they say that even Figment from Journey into Imagination made an appearance.
Oh,
well, that's debatable. Some people say it was Madame Mim as the dragon.
House of Mouse.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
I mean, House of Mouse was basically just Disney's huge circle jerk ode to itself. So
we have all these characters. We need to do something with them. Let's make a show.
Yeah. Why not? And I do respect though that they hired Randy Rogel to write a lot of the songs because, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's more like a big. I think it's more like a big, like the ultimate TV show made specifically for Disney fans.
Oh yeah, yeah. It was D23 before D23.
Yeah, but if they make a lot of references to like the Black Cauldron, not a lot of people will get that.
Did they ever reference Black Cauldron on House of Mouse?
Yes, they did.
There was at one point.
Okay, now they
Daisy
have.
tries to use it at one stage to cast a spell to bring the audience back after she accidentally makes them disappear.
Yeah, like at one point she found like the cauldron and she summons the cauldron-born army.
I need to watch more House of Mouse because this is that is gold. But yeah, I mean, I didn't think Disney. I always thought Disney didn't want to acknowledge Black Cauldron even existed. So
yeah.
Oh no,
that's more
whenever
Songs
the villains
South.
took over the House of Mouse, the king showed up as well. It was glorious.
Have you seen the House of Mouse episode, Remus Unchained, where he comes back and gets revenge on everyone and blows the place up?
What?
This one?
What?
Where was that?
Okay. What were we talking about? Where were we going with this?
I don't know. We were trying.
It was like DuckTales.
We were trying to figure out the timeline of Scrooge McDuck, and somehow we're talking about freaking a compilation show from the 2000s.
Yeah, Quack Pack lost me when they fired Russi Taylor as the voices of Huey, Dewey, and Louie. It's like they lost me at that. So anyway,
yeah. But see, now we're talking about Quack Pack. Quack Pack is technically the official spinoff from DuckTales. And obviously from the picture you showed in the storyline, Huey, Dewey, Louie they do fit the age of what happened at the same age as Quack Pack. So we have to assume that this happened during the time frame of Quack Pack, and probably why Scrooge is never actually officially referenced in the show too much.
Well, perhaps, but in this picture it says Scrooge McDuck died in 1967, and Quack Pack very obviously took place in the 90s. So, I mean, we'd have to assume that the TV universe, everything happens 30 years later in the TV, or 20 or 30 years later in the TV universe.
Yeah, well, let's kind of forget specific times and dates,
okay,
or more or less the reference of the characters of age versus the decade that they were in.
Sure. I think age doesn't really matter in TV. I mean, we live in a time where The Simpsons has been on for 20 years, and Pokemon has been on for more than 10 years, and nobody aged a single bit.
Bart should be 33 by now.
Yeah. So let's just ignore the fact that different decades when shows come out. Let's look at the characters as their age of when it happened. Keep it in that kind of sense of a time frame.
Yeah.
Now, this is where I always find it eerie, and this is what got me actually thinking about this a long time ago. The other DuckTales spinoff, Darkwing Duck, which had Launchpad McQuack and also Gizmo Duck constantly cameoing in it. Gizmo Duck cameoed, Launchpad was the side character.
It's to the point where they're they're not cameos, they're like secondary characters. They're like Spazmaster and
some jerk.
The Wire, from Some Jerk with a Camera. They're not cameos, they're just secondary cameos.
Yeah, but here's the thing I always found, this is what actually originally got me thinking about this, is because I love Darkwing Duck. I watch I still watch the episodes in repeat. But you always notice that whenever Launchpad and Gizmo Duck got together, they would always say, we used to work for this guy. We used to work for the same guy. So I don't see Scrooge firing both those guys at the same time. So something happened between the time, and obviously it means that Darkwing Duck is happening in the future from the events of DuckTales.
Well, the show was made I think the last DuckTales official product was DuckTales the movie. I think the show had already kind of been canceled at that point, and the movie was kind of the last of the series, and that was 1990, and Darkwing Duck premiered in 91. So I think the implication is that maybe Scrooge McDuck died shortly after the events of the movie, and whoever inherited this company realized, hey, Launchpad is incompetent, and Scrooge only hired him because he was so cheap. So you're fired, and then Launchpad moved to St. Canard to team up with Darkwing.
Yeah, but that's who would have taken over Scrooge's wealth, because I do remember in the DuckTales
Dewey and Louie, maybe?
Basically in the DuckTales episode, Scrooge's Last Adventure, it was the cliche, Scrooge went to the doctor, came back home, then got a phone call and thought it was the doctor who said basically, yeah, you have 2 weeks to live, and it wasn't the doctor, it was a guy fixing his clock. And he basically kept saying in there that he wanted to... He would give his...
I don't think I've ever seen that episode.
It was one of the very last. It was right towards the very end of the series. I think it was right before the 2-part Golden Lamb or something. It was one of the very last few episodes. He basically said in that episode, I want to give my wealth to the kids, and then... What was the accountant name? Gizmo Duck's real personality? The accountant?
I don't remember.
I can't remember his name right now. Okay. He basically came up with this scheme about putting all of Scrooge's wealth into a computer bank, into an electronic banking system, and basically lost all the money, and then shenanigans happened. But basically, in that episode, he said he was giving all his wealth to Huey, Dewey, and Louie.
But Huey, Dewey, and Louie are minors, so they couldn't even until they turned 18.
Right. So which brings up the question.
So would all that money have just been put in a trust fund for them? I mean,
I'm guessing because if you see the events of Quack Pack, those guys obviously are not wealthy. They're not wealthy in that show.
These boys aren't going to be 18 for another, 6 or 8 years or so. So all the money's in a trust fund, and in the meantime, no one's getting paid because Scrooge isn't there to pay them. So everyone's fired, basically. And that includes Launchpad, which is why he moved to St. Canard to start a new life for himself.
I'm thinking more he didn't really fire them. It's just I think after the last episode, I think maybe Scrooge had enough. He's just retired from his grand adventures.
That could be.
Yeah, but AntiMat,
that money pit way too
he's got all the money in the world, so he just wants a break and he just finally wants to relax. It's not like he fired them. It's more to the point like, you're free to go. I don't need you anymore. You could do what you want. And maybe Launchpad has this a dream that he wants to do, and he moved to Saint Canard to do that. And so
I'll buy that for a shilling.
Yeah, but we're also discussing the official. We're trying to actually figure out the official Scrooge McDuck timeline from birth to death. So
I thought time didn't matter, LC.
I'm saying dates. I'm saying
stop making up rules.
Dates. The dates don't matter, but I'm saying
the timeline. You got the timeline right here. Scrooge McDuck, born in 1867, died in 1967.
Huh. But I'm thinking of what happened. This is the whole point. It's like what happened after he died. I'm assuming, and when did he technically die? What series was technically that point where he passed away?
Mickey Mouse killed him. End of.
Yes, Mickey Mouse killed him. He had his official assassin Eeyore freaking take him out.
Yeah.
He choked on a gold
dear.
And
you're going. The mouse willed you to die, so your wealth will be his.
It's my money now.
That's my money, bitch. Eeyore, take the duck out.
But if you think about it too, Scrooge McDuck's wealth is mostly put down to his magic coin.
It's not a magic coin. It's not a magic coin. Okay, here.
I'm
sorry. I have to correct this. Scrooge McDuck's
correct away.
Number one dime. It was the first dime he ever made. It was the dime that. Okay, he's a Here's the story as detailed in Life and Times of Scrooge McDuck. Scrooge McDuck is 10 years old. His family is dirt poor. And he decides, I need to start making some money to, help out the family. So his dad, for his 10th birthday, gives him a shoe shine kit. He wanders the streets of Glasgow asking people for a shoe shine. And his very first customer pays him with an American dime, which, isn't really worth anything to him because he lives in Scotland. And it's like, that guy cheated me. Well, and he used that dime as kind of his inspiration, as an incentive to, I need to be, as Karl Barks said, and Don Rosa quoted, I need to be tougher than the toughies and sharper than the sharpies, and I'll make my money square.
If I remember correctly, if at least from the sense of the cartoon, wasn't that guy basically just got done freaking laying concrete and had 2 bricks on his feet?
Oh yeah, well he was a ditch digger in the comic book, or he was or he was a manure piler or something. In Life and Times of Scrooge McDuck, there's a gag where before he starts shining the shoes, Scrooge takes out a chisel and starts chiseling away at all the dirt that's caked onto his boots. And it takes like an hour to finally get the boots sparkly clean, and then passes out, and only when he wakes up realizes, oh my god, he paid me with a worthless American dime. But he keeps that dime his entire life, and when he becomes this rich duck, he kind of shows it off as, this is the first dime I ever made through my own labor. This is the first dime I ever earned. Now,
but correct me if I'm wrong, wasn't there an episode where someone stole the dime off him, and then his money started to disappear?
Melissa's saying you should try to steal it constantly.
I'm talking about
this actual cartoon, because I've never read the comics.
Okay, well, let me start with the comics. Is where this all started. So let me start with the comics, and then I'll get to where the cartoon mutilate the idea.
I feel like I may have jumped into a fangasm pool here.
You probably did, yeah. But this often gets misinterpreted, so I just need to. I have no ill will towards any of you. I just need to correct this misinterpretation. All right. So, also in the comic books, the character of Magica Dispel discovers a spell where if she steals the first coin ever earned by the richest person in the universe, or by the richest man in the world, which is Scrooge McDuck, if she melts that coin into an amulet, the amulet will give her the Midas touch. The touch of where everything she touches will turn to solid gold. Now, that is the spell. That is why in the comics she is after the number one dime. Not because the dime itself is magical, but because she knows how to turn it magical and create a spell around it that will give her the Midas touch. Now, that got mutilated in the series. First of all, other comic book artists turned the number one dime into a lucky dime. And the idea was, the dime was Scrooge's good luck charm that enabled him to amass this entire fortune. When in fact, none of this is fact, obviously, it's all made up, but in the original comic, it wasn't his dime. The dime didn't make the money for him. He just used the dime as an inspiration to be a better Richard Duck. So, in the TV series, it really got crazy because not only was it constantly referred to as a lucky dime, even by Scrooge himself, but yes, they gave the dime itself magical powers. And in the final chapter of Life and Times of Scrooge McDuck, one of the big kind of runners is that Donald. By the way, the last chapter of Life and Times of Scrooge McDuck takes place at Christmas 1947. Because that was Scrooge's first introduction to comic books, Christmas on Bear Mountain. It was very important to Don Rosa to dovetail it to Scrooge's first official appearance. And they get to Scrooge's money bin, and Donald sees the dime. He says, look, kids, it's Scrooge's lucky dime. And Scrooge goes apeshit. What? What are you talking? Who invented that supreme bit of, you can't swear in Disney comics, obviously, but he basically said, he, in kinder words, he says, what the fuck are you talking about, lucky dime? It's not a lucky dime. So, and that was kind of Don Rosa. And the idea is, in the Duck universe, that was the legend that had kind of erupted around Scrooge, was that his number one dime was somehow this good luck charm. Mirroring how it got perverted in the real world. So, Donald basically... so Scrooge gets angry at Donald, and that was kind of Don Rosa taking out his own frustrations with people, Scrooge... Because he always hated the idea that Scrooge would need luck. Gladstone Gander needs luck. Scrooge gets by on his own hard work, and that's what makes him such a better character. So anyway, that's my rant about. So the dime's not magical; it was inspiration.
See, I always kind of looked at it more of the same way. I always kind of looked at it more like, if you ever go to a restaurant, how they always have that first dollar that they ever made.
Exactly.
In a freaking frame, it's stuck on the wall. That's how I always looked at it. I never saw it as like a magic piece.
Yeah, and in DuckTales in the series, instead of Magica getting the Midas touch from melting it into an amulet, it was just, it was so vague. It was always just, Magica Dispel in her June Foray Natasha Fatale voice going, I will kidnap the lucky dime and I will rule the world. And there was a missing step in there somewhere. It's like, steal the number one dime. Step 2, ? Step 3, profit.
The way I understood it working from a few of the episodes I seen was that it caused him to be successful in every business venture.
Right.
So essentially everything he went to invest in would succeed because the magic of this coin. But that is horrifying if you think about it.
It is
which
horrifying.
Means he is doomed how many people to poverty and failed businesses due to this.
Well, the answer in the Don Rosa universe is kind of just as horrifying, but for different reasons. There's one panel which kind of says it all, how Scrooge was able to become not just rich, but the richest man in the world. And that is, after the stock crash of 1929, it's literally just one panel in like a montage of him literally walking the streets of New York with bags of actual cash, because Scrooge was always obsessed with cash. He didn't really care about stocks or anything. That was just a means to an end of him having actual paper and silver money lying around. So he would literally... So there's one panel of him walking the streets of New York with bags overflowing with cash, and him just holding a sign saying, "Yes, I'm buying." And just all these broke investors just running up to him, willing to sell him their businesses at pennies on the dollar just so he can corner the market in everything. And that's how he became the richest duck in the world in the comics, is because he took advantage of the Great Depression.
That is fucking genius.
Yeah.
That is smart business 101.
Mm-hmm. It's smart storytelling, too, because I don't think Barks never addressed that in his comics. That was strictly a Don Rosa invention, and it makes a lot of sense.
You know, I'd done a quick search on Magic Dispel because I couldn't remember who the character was, and goddammit, DeviantArt, this is why we can't have nice things.
Oh, boy.
Oh, dear God.
Do I even want to...
Jesus.
Can I show this? I haven't clicked this. Can I show this?
Oh. No.
I knew it.
Why?
Well, yeah. Duck tits. Woo.
Oh, there's a worse one further down. And
What?
I'm not going to like that one.
No, don't even share that.
Oh,
I don't
dear
even want
God.
to know.
The whole universe takes place on the Howard the Duck planet. You realize that, right?
Oh.
Well,
Yeah.
technically,
tits,
Howard
woo.
technically Howard the Duck was actually a copyright infringement of Donald Duck.
And owned by Disney now, oddly enough. So
Yeah.
there you go.
That's true.
Lucas
My
owns
God.
it. Lucas owned the rights to Howard the Duck, and now Disney owns it. So full circle.
All of the ducks are
I'm
the
actually a
mouses.
little. I'm actually a little frustrated because I remember, like back in 2008, there was this news story at a Disney fan website of, how is Disney going to compete with all these comic book movies like The Dark Knight and Iron Man that are coming out, and I always thought, Disney has the perfect comic book movie sitting right under their noses, The Life and Times of Scrooge McDuck. DuckTales is nostalgic for the 80s. Transformers had just made all that money. Comic book movies were making all that money. I always thought Disney should, and that should be the that brings Disney 2D animation back, is The Life and Times of Scrooge McDuck. And
Yeah, but Tony,
Don Rosa's
to do it
narrative
proper,
action.
to do it properly, though, they would have to rehire their freaking hand-drawn freaking animators.
That's true. That is true. But they had just done so for Princess and the Frog, so I thought, maybe I always thought this should be the project that they continue 2D animation with, is Life and Times of Scrooge McDuck. But instead, they bought Marvel. So, no.
But there's just one little problem with that, is that the Scrooge McDuck universe, like, in general, it's from the Mickey Mouse universe. And the fact is that Disney seems to be a little bit hesitant with making, like, an actual movie. Like, they can do shorts easily, but, like, a whole Disney film regarding about Mickey Mouse and the gang, like, they don't seem to feel like they want to do that as much.
But Mickey wouldn't have to be in the Scrooge McDuck movie. Hell, Donald would barely have to be in The Life and Times of Scrooge McDuck, because it's all about Scrooge's life before he met Donald. Before Donald was even born, in fact.
But it's still a part of that universe. Like, it's still but it's still like the talking anthropomorphic animals, like the same kind of ducks as Donald Duck, and the same animal, like the same dogs as Goofy. It's a bit like how would that really sell as much as something like Wreck-It Ralph or Marvel or something like that?
We'll never know, because they're not making the movie. So,
Yeah, see, here's where I think Disney's theory on that is. Let's face it, 90% or at least 65% of most people who associate Scrooge is associating him with The Christmas Carol.
yeah,
Yeah.
that is true.
Yeah.
Because let's face it, most people wouldn't even know Scrooge McDuck if it wasn't for the Disney Christmas Carol.
And to be fair, it is a little bit hard to make Scrooge into a truly sympathetic character, because regardless of his upbringing, he still winds up, in the 0.00001%. So, how can you really? I think, honestly, it would be. I don't think it would be impossible to make audiences relate to him and root for him, but it would be an uphill battle.
In the day and times, he probably wouldn't work as a hero. He worked well in the 80s. In the 80s, he was a perfect hero character because, we were in the Reaganomics years, we were in freaking the Wall Street years. Now there's the backlash of that kind of lifestyle, and he's almost better as a villain at this point. He's better to go back to, honestly, Disney would be smart to turn him back to what he was in back when he first came out, and as a stingy, basically a manipulative freaking opportunist.
That is true. I mean, the Scrooge's. It's interesting that Scrooge's kind of, biggest years in terms of popularity coincided with capitalism's biggest years of popularity. I mean, in the 1950s, when his comic books sold through the roof, that was all, that was the Eisenhower era, when everyone was happy to be part of a booming economy after, and capitalism was considered a great thing. And again, 1980s, greed is good, Gordon Gekko, all that stuff was happening. And now, the rich have been given a really bad name. But fuck it, they can afford it.
He would actually work better coming back as a villain, if you ask me. If I know the comics, I'm very loose on the comics, but I do know some of the comics. I know one of my favorite old comic strips from Scrooge and Donald was there was some story where freaking Donald was trying to start up like a freaking landscaping company or something, and he needed to borrow money from Scrooge to buy a lawnmower. So Scrooge lended him money at extremely, insanely high interest.
Right.
And then at the end of the day, I think, what was it that he ended up, at the end of the fucking comic, basically Scrooge repoed the fucking lawnmower and then still charged him for it.
Yeah, Scrooge was kind of a villain in the earlier days, in the earliest days of Carl Barks' and occasionally still is. I mean, it was also Karl Barks' way of commenting on how the rich can fuck over the poor at will. And until he decided he'd rather make him a treasure hunter. But yeah,
but yet again, that goes with the times. I mean, in the 80s, what was big? Indiana Jones, adventure films.
That's right.
Yeah,
archaeology.
And also one thing I want to mention is that it would be interesting to see how people are going to react to Scrooge McDuck today, because other than the people who are very nostalgic to the 80s and absolutely adore the DuckTales show, who's really interested to get the DuckTales remastered game?
I bought it instantly. Susie bought it before I could.
Yeah, but we're nostalgic
I have
for that.
Yeah,
from what I was reading, from what I was reading earlier this week, actually the DuckTales remastered game actually sold 3 times more than what they originally estimated.
Really?
Yeah, it's a hit. It literally sold extremely well.
I'm sorry, but how are young kids going to react nowadays to Scrooge McDuck? They're playing this rich man, they don't know DuckTales back then, and when they're gonna play DuckTales now, it's I'm gonna play this rich duck guy,
Yeah, but they're not looking at that. They're looking at cute duck fucking treasure hunter.
Well, their parents will introduce them to it. I mean, I do wish Disney was doing more with the character these days, but I wish they were still at least airing reruns of all those classic Disney afternoon shows, but
it would have made sense to do it before releasing the game.
Yeah.
Technically they are. I think they are, but they're doing it way late at night. At least in Canada, they're doing it.
Well, I hope that Disney, that DuckTales Remastered doing so well will finally help Disney realize just what they've got here, because they're
gold
sitting
mine
on
that they had.
They're sitting on a money bin gold mine of nostalgia for all, not just DuckTales, but Darkwing Duck and Tailspin and Chippendale Rescue Rangers and they're not doing anything with it. I mean,
a good way to play off this is Netflix just got the right to start airing freaking Disney Disney content. That would be perfect testing grounds. Let Netflix put Chippendales, DuckTales, Darkwing Duck, fucking Tailspin. Let them just put the entire series on Netflix. I mean, come on, what are you losing? It's a property you're not even doing nothing with. Let them put it on Netflix. See what the views are like on Netflix. It's a It's a good marketing. It's a good test market. And let's face it, 90% of people under the age of 28 don't watch cable television no more. They find their entertainment online. So test the waters online.
Disney, if you're listening to this, test the waters online. I know Bob Iger listens to this show every week, so
it's really a good idea. Because consider some of the trolls that are out in the interwebs.
Michael Eisner, you are a god, and you know what? If you are truly the god I believe you are, you will do this.
The mouse is listening.
Cine Radio, sponsored by Disney.
Cine Radio, sponsored by Michael Eisner.
Michael Eisner doesn't work for Disney anymore.
Close enough.
He's too busy making a remake of the Garbage Pail Kids movie.
Oh, for fuck's
Seriously?
sake. Really?
Yeah.
Wow, he really is the biggest supporter of my show.
Okay.
What in the hell?
Well,
he saw the Nostalgia Critics review of it and thought,
gold!
yeah.
Well, these kids nowadays are watching these online reviews of old movies. Maybe I should start remastering them.
Mm-hmm. So, any other questions about DuckTales or the Scrooge or Disney in general?
actually, I want to bring up one thing about Scrooge McDuck is that I truly think more and more that Scrooge McDuck is a comic book character in a sense that there are different variations of Scrooge McDuck. He's a lot like Batman. You know how there's like different versions of him? There's like the Tim Burton Batman, there's the Joel Schumacher Batman, then there's the Christopher Nolan Batman, then there's the Frank Miller Batman. There's all these different variations, and they tell different stories of how Batman came to be. That's what I kind of think with Scrooge McDuck. There's like different versions. There's the Dan Rosa Scrooge McDuck. There's
Don
the Carl
Rosa.
Barks. What?
Don Rosa, but
Don Rosa. Thank you. Yeah, There's that Scrooge McDuck. There's the Carl Barks Scrooge McDuck. There's the Scrooge McDuck from the series. There's the Scrooge McDuck from the games. They're all different versions. And the Don Rosa one, he died, but not the other Scrooge McDucks. That's what I think.
Fair enough.
So we have
Yeah.
alternate universe Scrooges.
Indeed, we do.
Well, me and Susie have
And in every
loosely-
single one, they don't wear pants because of the mouse.
Not allowed.
This has been a long theory with me and Elsie. We've been debating why Donald Duck doesn't wear pants, and we think it's because of Mickey Mouse.
Yeah.
Yes.
Care to explain that?
Hold on.
Well, there's an old cartoon that we found. It's during like one of the Halloween old Disney specials. I can't remember what one it is. It's like Mickey and Donald and Goofy are ghost hunters in it.
The Lonesome Ghosts.
Yeah, that's the one. That's the one. And just in that, I kind of noticed when we were sitting watching, it's like, okay, see the same. Look at Mickey's pants at the moment. They would fit Donald's body perfectly. Is that why he doesn't wear pants? And we sat and debated for about an hour after we watched this, thinking, did Mickey Mouse steal Donald Duck's pants? And then it got into the whole, did he do it with Scrooge McDuck? And then we thought that Mickey had killed Huey, Dewey, and Louie's parents because you never hear of them, and it just kind of spiraled into that.
We've had so many weird conversations on this subject, and it comes down to we believe that somehow, somewhere, Mickey has his own money bin, except for it's filled with nothing but Disney characters' pants, and he likes to dive into it. It just comes up and smells like sisters.
Maybe. I can imagine he does like Scrooge McDuck. He dives into the pants. It's like he spits out like an underwear.
He spits out buttons.
Maybe Mickey Mouse and Scrooge McDuck are the same person.
Well, then my theory is, when it came down to Duckburg, my theory is that Scrooge was the only person who was rich enough to actually fight the mouse. So he built Dougburg as like a fucking military compound to keep Mickey Mouse out, because you notice Mickey Mouse never shows up in Dougburg.
Never.
So it's like a military compound. It's like a safe zone. It's like there's soldiers surrounding Duckburg, watching out for Mickey and his crew to make sure that he never comes in to steal the pants. And everybody goes, well, Scrooge doesn't wear pants. He's Scottish. Nobody wears pants in Scotland.
There you go.
There is one. Yeah, I think it was one of Scrooge's relatives actually who wears a kilt, and that's the closest thing to wear pants.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because Mickey's solo.
I can't remember his name.
Oh,
You think? Yeah.
I know that.
Oh crap! I had the tree. I had the family tree of all the ducks at one
Is
point.
it McGruff or something?
McGruff, or, yeah, probably.
And on the side, also funny thing is, me and Susie also have gone into serious heavy debate on who is Huey, Dewey, and Louie's parents. And you know what? I came up to figured out the perfect. I know who Huey, Dewey, and Louie's father was. It was Howard the Duck.
The mother was.
He's a drunk. He's a chain-smoking drunk. It just would make sense that the kids would be taken away from him. And he looks exactly like Donald. So that means Donald is obviously his brother.
Actually,
well, no.
I have this.
Donald's
I'm
sister.
sorry, but I just want to share this family tree here. Like they covered up like his father, but they revealed like Donald's sister.
Yeah, well, that family tree that I think I think that's the Don Rosa family tree, which is an expansion from a family tree that Carl Barks drew. Now, the interesting thing about that is that when Huey, Dewey, and Louie were first introduced in the Donald theatrical shorts in 1938 in a short called Donald's Nephews, it opens with him reading a letter from his sister Dumbella. So his sister Dumbella Duck is Huey, Dewey, and Louie's mother. However, Carl Barks changed that. He changed Huey, Dewey, and Louie's mother to simply Della Duck. So that itself is a perversion of what originally took place. But Della Duck is Donald's sister, and the only place she's ever appeared in a comic book, in fact, is Life and Times of Scrooge McDuck. She has a very brief appearance where she doesn't even say anything, but you see her and Donald as children in the second to last chapter of Life and Times. And when the family tree was first published, it was like right in the middle of publishing Life and Times of Scrooge McDuck for the first time. And I remember there was a commentary essay right next to it, right on the next page, where Don Rosa said, "The one thing I've left blank is Huey, Dewey, and Louie's father. I will deal with that someday when you least expect it. I will reveal who they are. Someday when you least expect it, I will write a story that explains who Huey, Dewey, and Louie's father is."
You hold on a sec, I'll be back.
And then Don Rosa retired without ever having done it.
Oh.
Oh well.
Cliffhanger.
All right, I'm back. Sorry.
So so it may very well be Howard the Duck. You may be right, especially since he's owned by Disney now. So
the theory could be Howard the Duck? My God. Makes sense.
Well, we have a new movie then.
So
maybe the one with duck tits is actually the mother.
That's Della.
That's Della.
That's Della Duck. Could be.
Very good chance. But it contradicts with my theory that Howard the Duck is actually Huey, Dewey, and Louie's parents.
No, it wouldn't.
No.
That's what we're talking about. Have you been listening to us?
That is what
Are
we're
you
doing.
drinking again?
I missed a chunk of it and I got it.
And on that note,
I think my audio kicked out there for a second or something.
You're sitting playing the game, aren't you? That's what it is.
No, I was setting up my playlist for after this segment.
He's ignoring us. Tut tut.
Sorry for my unprofessionalism.
And you call yourself a host of a radio show.
Hey, I like this. I think there's only one other person who even topped me for fucking for quality. So,
Nash, I think.
Yeah, some guy that does something on Monday. I'm not sure what his name is.
Some guy who joins with this girl who likes hippos, maybe.
Yeah, I don't know. It's on some website that's too elite for me. But I think that's enough time we had. We went for a full hour.
Oh yeah, it was a fun discussion.
It was good. I liked it. It came out very well. We all did a great job. Golf clap, everyone. So before we end the segment, final words, people. Some jerk. What do you got in the works?
What have I got in the works? Well, I'm hoping to drop. I am actually still working on the ABC Goes to Disney World retrospective. I'm hoping to finish and
Wait, are you
drop
talking about
the
the
next
urban myths?
episode. What?
Are you talking about the urban myths of Disneyland?
No, I'm talking about my my show, Some Jerk with a Camera.
I know, but you're saying like Ghosts of Disney World. Are you talking about like the urban legends of the ghosts who wander the Magic Kingdom?
No, I'm talking about ABC Goes to Disney World.
Oh, okay.
The ABC TV
special.
special.
Not ghosts.
Sorry, I was thinking you were talking about like the ghost who supposedly walks like freaking, that haunts like the
audio.
Pirates of the Caribbean and those ones.
Honey, shut up and let me talk.
No. Clearly, LC, no. I am doing the Ghosts of Disney World. Why don't you continue telling them about my show, which I am doing, called Ghosts of Disney World, LC, since you obviously know so much about it.
I was just trying to figure. I was just trying to understand what you meant.
No. Continue. Continue talking about Some Jerk with a Camera's Ghosts of Disney World series.
I was just asking if that's what it was about.
With special
clearly
guest, the Hitchhiker Ghost.
So.
Oh, jeez.
Okay, then. I am doing a retrospective of 90s ABC sitcoms that did Disney World episodes. Stuff like Full House and Family Matters and Roseanne. Now, I've already dropped the Full House episode several months ago, and later this month, I'm hoping to finally drop the Family Matters episode and the Roseanne episode. So we'll see if that works and if I'm able to finish them on time.
Nice.
So, yay.
By the way, I have a question. Would the Muppets Go to Disney World TV special would count?
No, because that was a standalone special. I'm looking for episodes of TV series. I might still review that someday, but it doesn't count for my purposes.
Nice. All right, that sounds good.
So, AntiMat, what do you got in the works?
So far I'm just working on a few pieces here and there, but I'm going to be starting to work on the second installment of the Epic Mickey Files, where I look into like the many different characters that were in Disney's Epic Mickey, and now I'm going to start looking at the characters from the sequel, Epic Mickey 2, Power of Two, which I'll check on like Elliot the Dragon, the Three Little Pigs, and a few more. There wasn't a lot of new ones, but essentially I'll try to find a bit more if I can.
Awesome.
Sounds interesting.
Oh yeah.
I don't even know what Epic Mickey is. Explain that.
Epic Mickey? You know the game? You don't know the game?
No, I don't know that game.
The game is pretty much Mickey Mouse has gone into a world full of forgotten Disney characters in a twisted version of Disneyland.
Mickey breaks shit and has to fix it with a magic paintbrush.
Yeah, it's actually one of my favorite games. Like,
it
Tony,
seems
you
very
must know.
dark.
I haven't played it, but I've heard of it. It's yeah.
Mm-hmm. I highly recommend the first. You can skip the second.
I need to play that.
So, Susie, the quiet banshee in the corner. What do you got for final words?
I want to go play DuckTales.
And of course, Nicola, what do you got? What does the Avatar Decent Humor have in the works?
Don't put the kitten in the fridge.
okay, I gotta get the full. See, now the segment's over. I need the full story on this one.
All right then. Colin came into the house on Thursday with a fridge. He got a new fridge. Didn't tell me anything. So we have the new fridge standing in the kitchen. It's not plugged in yet, and we're taking all the styrofoam out of it. And Chi, being Chi, had climbed up onto my shoulder. So she's just sitting there, looking in the fridge. She walks over Colin's shoulder and starts peering in the fridge. So Colin lifts her, puts her in the fridge, on the shelf, and then closes the door.
Oh. Chilly kitty.
Like, don't put the kitten in the fridge. And he laughs, opens the door, and lifts her out, and then puts her in the recycling bin. I was like, don't put the kitten in the bin! Stop putting the kitten in places! This is a 28-year-old man.
And remember, folks, to watch the internet for LC's Ghosts of Disney World series, airing once a week. New episodes every day on thatguywiththeglasses.com. That's LC's Ghosts of Disney World series. New episodes every hour on thatguywiththeglasses.com and on the front page of Google. And if you don't see them, then clearly LC needs to be badgered about it every second.
Well, from I'm an urban legend fanatic. I'm a ghost story fanatic, and I've heard plenty of ghost stories about Ghosts of Disney, so I could probably do a show about it if I actually had the time, patience, and give a shit.
All right.
All right, thanks for joining us here on the SSL this week. Night, everyone.
All right.
Bye-bye.
See you later, dudes.